Okay. Am I online? Hello, please. Here I am. Am I online? Oh, God. What? Am I online? Why do I sound like that? Ugh. Alright. Okay, so now I get to figure out, I get to continue my altitude journey. It's really, what I've realized, what I'm trying to do is actually, I'm just trying to blend between chunks, and so whenever I figure this out, I will be essentially unlocking how to blend anything, not just altitude. Yeah, any kind of value, really. So that's kind of exciting. But this has proved to be quite difficult. Quite. Okay, and this isn't going to be right, but I just need to remind myself where I was this morning. I was trying to do this. Okay, pause. Uh-huh. Okay. So, still not right, which is very unfortunate because I was trying something new, and I had very high hopes for it. So let's take a look at some of our values and the code that I was doing. Right, amount of chunk, altitude, and then I'm just adding that at the end. So let's breakpoint there. Okay, and so what chunk am I on? 1, 0. The chunk altitude is 0.4. And I am considering, I believe, the top left corner of the chunk, that vertice. Now the altitude weights, I still have a lot. And it comes out to be not what, that's definitely not what I want. Amount of chunk altitude is 0. Vert dis to edge is also 0. The edge, okay, well that makes sense, I guess, right? That makes sense. So I guess rather than multiplying by 2 here, I want it to... Hi, Mr. Famous. Hey, buddy. Did you like that little treat? Yeah. He got a little Berkey treat before I started streaming, and now he's quite happy. Hi, buddy. Do you want to come up here? No? Okay. Yeah, so max distance to edge. I really just want to add 0.5, right? To the alpha. So the vertex distance to edge, and I have a max distance to edge. Now, if distance to edge is 0, I'm gonna get 0. So if I just add 0.5, because that's essentially what I'm saying I want my end to be. Now, what's gonna happen when I get to get to 1? I can't just I think what I have to do is I have to multiply this by 2, and then I have to add max distance to offset it. Rather, what I should do is this. Divided by max distance to edge. And so that should, if I'm not mistaken, that should range from 1 to 0.5. No, that's not going to be right either. Will it? There's so many MS Paint drawings here. Okay, so I want, like, I have this point, we're going here, the distance to edge is actually 0. What do I want here? God, my brain is not primed for math yet. And so if I take skinnier there, if I take that and divide it by this point's distance divided by, like, what is it? Max distance to edge. It's going to be 0 divided by whatever that is, which is going to be 0. I want this to be, I think I want this to be 0.5. And so yeah, do I just do max distance to edge times 2? No, because I'm doing vert distance to edge. How far away it is. No, I don't want to do vertex distance to edge. I want to do vertex distance from center. That's what I'm doing wrong here. Do I have that value anywhere? Vert dist to center. World verts loc to world chunk location. And really, I just needed the max distance to the edge with the edge intersection. And so now I can do vert distance to center divided by. And so if I have something like, let's say right here is halfway, max distance to edge is this times 2. And so distance away divided by the overall distance, which would be like way off in the screen over there. If I can draw a straight line, I can't. So yeah, if I get this distance divided by, I get how far it is in that direction. But that's interesting because that's kind of, I was kind of similarly doing something. And then I think I don't need to because I multiplied it by 2, distance away from center, so it should be 0, and then if I do 0 divided by max distance, this to center. So I think I need to do a 1 minus here. Because if I have this point right there, it's going to be basically vert distance to 0, 0 divided by max distance to edge. Yeah, I need to do a 1 minus here. Okay, so I think that works quite a bit better. And I know I'm going to need to change up what I have in here, but I just want to see some of those numbers first before I make any additional changes. Okay, that did give me a different result. It's not in the water anymore. They're still offset from each other, so that's sad to see. I'm really just wanting these chunks to line up quite a bit. Okay, so we wanted to put a breakpoint here at the very end. I want to see what some of these values are. Okay, or what chunk are we talking? We're talking chunk 1, 0, whose chunk altitude is 0.4. Right, and so we have vert distance to center. Yes, max distance to edge should be about twice that. So yeah, vert alpha is 0.5, exactly what we want. And so the amount of this chunk's altitude is 0.203. Okay, so altitude weights, let's check that out. So we're getting like negative numbers and shit, so I don't want that. So if I do that, we're gonna get rid of everything that's too far away with that alpha greater than 1 skip. Go away. Okay, play. Boy. Oh, I thought they lined up. Oh my god. I thought they lined up, but they have not. Oh, I got so excited there for a second. Okay, altitude weights. I'm considering chunk 0, 0. So, and this would be the point in the top left. Yes, so I'm considering 3 different chunks here. And so do I need to use this same value? Where is it? Right here. Max distance to edge times 2. Do I need to use that as the same divisor down here? I don't know what that gives me. I don't know what question that answers, but we're gonna try it out just to say, fuck it. Okay, yeah, skip that. Don't care. Don't care. Okay. We good? No, we got one more to skip. Hello, please? Okay, we're stuck somewhere. Rebuilding. And so what would doing max distance to edge, if I use that as the divisor for the vertex's distance to the chunk? I'm only getting things that are essentially equidistant to the distance away from the center? Or the possible distance, the farthest possible distance away from the center. Okay, I may need to restart this again. It does not like that divisor at all. What is that doing to the numbers? Took a while. It's because there's nothing there. So that means we're getting some like really bad numbers. Let's put another breakpoint. Amount of chunk altitude, I think that seems fine. So my altitude weights were all negative numbers. Why were you all negative numbers? What is vert dist to neighbor chunk? Why did that not evaluate? I mean, that should be, oh, it didn't evaluate because it's like inside there. Okay, so we're gonna do that. Step forward. Okay, now I can see it. Vert distance to neighbor chunk. Wait, why is that so big? What the fuck? What the fuck? That's not right. Why is that number like that? What? The verts are, oh, it's oh, I'm doing distance squared still. Why was I doing that? Yeah, that's not gonna be right at all, actually. And no wonder the other ones. Yeah, okay. Oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, okay. So that makes me want to go back and undo some things. That makes me want to. Okay, we'll stick with this. We'll stick with this for now, and then we'll tinker some more. But yeah, that dist squared. I'm surprised the other things were working. Why the hell was that? Amount of chunk alt, altitude weighted average was 0.04. Yeah, I'm getting some negatives here. Or alpha is less than 0. How do we look? How are we looking? Still not lining up. Still not lining up. That one is no different. Okay, so not max distance to edge, max distance to chunk. Yeah, that doesn't change anything, actually, which is kind of strange. So let's not do that. And we're still offset by the same kind of amount. Wow, my center is fucking weird looking. Oh, this is so frustrating. Oh, I thought I was gonna have it today, and I feel like I'm not going to now. Let's check out these values here. So what the chunk altitude is 0.45. So let me see what percentage is 0.2265. 0.2265. 0.453. It is 0.5. It is exactly 0.5. So that's good. And I guess I could have just seen that by looking at the vert alpha. So let's step to the next one. So this one should be, it's also 0.5. What point are we looking at? So it's always going to be 0.5 on the edge. Is that what I want? So I am doing altitude mod, not altitude modifier. Yeah, this ain't right at all. So I should just be adding them all up with this setup. And so why do I have these pinholes? Interesting. Okay, so that's even more farther off. Okay. And so if I just did the, show me, the ones above 0, it would be 0.132, 0.146, 0.220. Okay, so here's an interesting... The corners line up with each other. Each opposite corner actually lines up with each other. Now there, and I do seem to have somewhat of a pattern here. Okay, so we're not waiting. So let me just try the altitude modifier. And then we would want to do the divide here. Okay, so that just went back to normal. Okay, so undo there. So 0.129 plus 0.146 plus 0.226, and then I would have divided those by 3. 0.167. Oh no, I just added them all up. So 0.5 plus. So I would want to divide them, I think? No. Because it should be blended between 0.5 and whatever the neighbors were. Let's just see what would happen. Don't know what that was. Okay, I just deleted a bunch of shit on accident. Great, great, this is going great. Okay. Once again, we are not there. I keep finding different ways to do the same shit. Which is just have these chunks offset at like the same... at varying, like the same difference, but at varying heights. And so this was promising, because it seems like, if I'm not mistaken, that the corners are what they should be. The opposite corners. Now, they just need to get all the neighbors. And so let me figure out why my why I have those I have the pinholes, right? Yeah, so I have these pinholes here at 0. And so that is actually what the altitude of the chunk should be. I have an assertion to make sure. Yeah, if it's the center vertex, ensure that the altitude modifier that I got from this function is the same as the chunk altitude. So the center coordinates should all be the chunk altitude, and that's never gotten tripped. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why. we're getting those pinholes. Yeah, that clearly did not help anything. We still have our corners lined up good. What is happening there? Is that actually lined up now too? In just a really fucking weird way? Is there one vert that's like lined up? Can't tell. I feel like I'm getting close. Oh yeah, that one's definitely not right. Right? Well, like there might be one vert here. I don't think so. Hang on, we'll do this. Yeah, I don't think so. The corners do look good though. Now this one, so hard to see. No, it's not. Okay, so the edges are not lined up. And then yeah, we have that massive pinhole there. So what the fuck's happening there? Amount of chunk altitude times vert alpha. Wait, I'm doing a 1 minus here? Is that right? Yeah, that's right. That is right. Oh, interesting. Why is the center like that, man? That's so strange. Once again, nowhere close. Okay, what is alpha? Alpha is 1 here. Yeah, so take 1 minus alpha, it turns it negative. Okay, so yeah, I think I do want that, right? Is this the one where the corners are aligned? No, no, it's not. Corners? We are aligned on the corners here. When we get rid of the greater than ones. So let's look at some of those values, I suppose. Why do these values look good? Okay, so maybe I need to divide. Divide by 3. That would have given me... What's 0.49? Divided by 3. 0.499 divided by 3 plus 0.24. 0.40 is that? I don't know that that's what I want. It's like that's definitely not coming out to be the right number, but the corners are lining up when it's like that. Do they still line up? No, no, they're fucking horribly off now. And so I guess what I learned, like, let me switch gears, because this is not anywhere close to correct. So I use this value, this distance, to determine how much of this number. And then I use this distance to determine how much of this number. Or that distance divided by that distance. To determine how much of this number. And then, you know, lerp it with the same thing. There. I feel like that's probably not right. Like it's maybe right for this one, but not for anything here. Oh, I fucking missed it. God damn it. So, do I need to do... I do have vert distance to... Gross. Okay, got the gnat. I have this distance. That's what I'm currently using. I'm using the chunk, differences between the chunk, to determine how much of this to use, and then I average it with the same with that. And what I changed to do for this one was to actually take into account how far away it is from the edge, and use that as the max distance. How would I do the same kind of concept, but for a neighbor chunk? Would I have to get that point? And then do like... And then I would do 2 times this length here. Call this y. I have to do y times y. And then divide this length by that. To get like... Because what does that give me? So if I have there... So let me draw that in a different color. Let me do red. So if I have... So we're going to draw to the center there. So this length if I have that length times 2, what is that length telling me? Because what it was telling me from the perspective of this chunk, it was telling me like the maximum possible distance in this angle. Hey, Phoenix, thank you, mate. Thank you for the Prime. Give me the Bezos bucks. Love that. Thank you for your support. How's the progress? Why isn't that showing up in my restream? What the hell? I guess because it's a sub message or something? Anyways, the progress is so what I ended up doing with what we were working on last night, here it is. I ended up just getting the directional vector. Here, I'll pop this up here. So I got the directional vector of center to the point, and I just I multiplied that by, I'm just getting a point along that direction. I'm just using the max distance. The max distance being like the possible farthest away that 2 chunks could be from each other. So essentially I just take this line segment and I extend it out far enough to where I know it will intersect at the line at some point. And then I use the polygon 2D. I'm going to create a polygon with my chunk corners. So I'm creating a square in memory essentially, and then I create a line segment with that endpoint that's really far away. And maybe I can show you what it looks like. That's what I was doing. And then I use this find intersections function, and it will find me the intersection between that line that's drawn like very far away and the edge of the chunk, which I can then use to get the distance away from center, essentially. Yeah, so there it is. I'll get rid of all these. Hide. There it is. There she is. So it's drawing the square. And you can see these are all the line casts from each little vert. And this isn't every vert, I'm just doing a subset of the verts. And you can see where they end up hitting. I don't know why there's a big gap right there. Somewhat odd, but yeah, so that just doing a intersection test was a lot easier than trying to find the equation that I was looking for last night. And now I'm trying to use that Comment that back out. So I have that edge intersection point, and then I'm getting the max distance to my edge. So from the chunk center to the edge intersection. I bet you've never been so excited to see a square. I mean, I was, but then I remembered, like, oh, this is only a small piece of the puzzle, and I don't actually know that this piece goes to this particular puzzle. So, excited and then immediately brought back down to earth. But I get the maximum distance to the edge. I'm calling it maximum distance to the edge, but it's really just the world chunk location to the edge intersection point. And then I multiply it by 2. And I multiply it by 2 because I want to use it as a divisor for the vertex's distance to the chunk center. And I want it divided by 2 because I want it to be 0.5 on the very edge. That's why I do that. And so that does that reasonably well. I do a 1 minus to make sure that it's 1 at the center and 0.5 at the end. And so this should at most be... This right here should be 0 to 0.5. Do a 1 minus to get the alpha, and then I multiply that by the chunk's altitude, and I get like the amount of the current chunk's altitude that I should have. Now I got somewhat close in that. What did I do? I may have to refigure out where I was. But the corners of the chunks lined up. The very corner points did. Okay, so not there. Or it was when I got rid of that. And this is not right at all. The numbers are all wrong. But yeah, here we go. So the exciting part is the opposite corners actually line up now. So those look pretty pixel perfect. But they're just not taking into account, I guess, all of the corners. And so I've been trying to go through and make sure that I'm doing that correctly. And so that point right there should really be, it should be 0.5 of this chunk, this chunk, this chunk, and this chunk, all averaged, right? But it looks like it's only taken into account that one. And then I wonder if I do something like this. This is a shot in the goddamn dark. Okay, let's look at our edges. So that doesn't seem to be any different. I think we're just lower now. Do I still have these pinholes? Yeah, I still have these like little pinholes here, but I guess it's more right. The pinholes aren't as deep. Let's try it without the +1. Not that I think that would make much of a difference. Yeah, same thing. I think we're just a little bit like higher or something. Still have the pinholes at the center. And so I have an assertion to say this point right here, like it would throw an error or hit a breakpoint if this point were not equal to the chunk altitude. So that's actually what it should be at. And it's like raising it up a lot more for some reason. And so I think the line of thinking I was following, was I'm using this times 2 to be the divisor. That's like the maximum distance, and I'm dividing this value by it. And so that should be properly interpolating this value, this chunk's value, from 0.5 on the edge to 1 at the middle. Now, what I'm doing for this point to get this value is I actually get this white line. Take that a little bit further. This white line I'm treating as the divisor, and that's the max distance, and then I divide by this value. And that doesn't feel right because I no longer have a divisor that is following like chunk center to point. And so that's why I drew this dot right here. So I'm wondering if I need to do something like take this times 2 to where it would extend out here, and then divide this by that. And so this times 2 would be like out there-ish. Like that times 2 would be like maybe a little bit longer than that, so like out here. And it's like, would I want to, because what it would do is like, I would still make me consider a point right here taking into some of this. And I don't know, I think I would want by the time it gets to here to not have any of that value anymore. So that's why it makes sense to use this one, because that's where I basically want the value to end. Like right here in the middle is where I want that value to drop off. So I want to interpolate between, it should be 0 here and 1 here. But how do I account for the angle that it's at, right? I mean, I guess I'm doing that, but do I just need to do the linear distance rather than the angular distance? Is that where I'm messing up? Because maybe I just need to do that, whatever that value is. And same with doing that distance, that would, I think ideally would chop it off here. But when I'm doing the point distance, what am I using the wrong numerator or the wrong denominator? And if I just use, what would happen if I just use the same Where is it? Where is it? If I use the same max distance to edge for the denominator, what would those values look like? I feel like that's not right. Because what did I say I was doing? I was taking this value times 2. So if I use that as the divisor for this, will that even, I have no idea what that gives me. Okay, what are the altitude weights here? They seem actually kind of reasonable here. So I should probably be, because the amount of chunk is about 0.23. I feel like maybe I should get the average of these and add it rather than the total. But we'll see what that looks like anyway. Yeah, the pinhole is still... No! It's... What have I fucking done? Did I just fucking randomly come across that? Oh, dude. Okay, so if I divide it, is it right? If I divide it, if I average those, is it right? Oh, they all line up. Holy shit. Holy fucking shit. Okay, that's still not right. But they fucking line up. That is a huge breakthrough. That is a huge fucking breakthrough. Okay, they're a little bit more off now. Okay, that's off. That wasn't right. That wasn't the right move right there. Okay, but this is fucking close. Okay, what have I done? What mathematical answer have I arrived at here? That's fucking huge. That's fucking huge. Okay, so why don't we, we'll get rid of that. Get rid of that, do distance to all of them. So we're not going to filter any out. What happens now? What happens now? Oh, Jesus Christ, where am I? Okay, that's also not right. Okay, okay. So, filtered out to the nearest 3, that actually lines up on the edge. It's just not correct at all. So, what if I did, divided by... Not divided by equals, we're going to do divided by, +1. Because there's 4 total values right now. The 3 closest chunks and then the chunk that it's on. So that's why I'm doing +1 there. Okay, also not right, but it still lines up. It still lines up. Oh my god, that looks like that's a pretty fucking sick ass flower though. And still, the pinholes are very interesting. That it obeys at the very center. Okay, and so if I'm doing that, and then I get rid of the skip. Pause. Okay, no, that's not right. That's not right. So it's offsetting them because it's taking into account too many things. And so if I don't skip and I change it to the closest 3, I believe I'll go back to the same thing as if as if I had uncommented this. Now, do I need to... Okay, yep. So our borders are secure. We have secured the borders. Okay, so that's the same thing. So if I just dial that number up. Okay, what if I do 4? What was that? What is 4? Again, this is probably not right. Okay, it's not right. I can already see through the borders. The borders are insecure. Borders have gone back to being insecure. They're only slightly insecure now, though. So yeah, that's not right. We definitely want to... It's only the closest 3 that we want to consider, I believe. Unless maybe just me doing the +1 there wasn't the move. Yeah, okay, that's still not the move. Still not the move. So we're going to go down to closest 3 again. Make sure we reset to our closest that we've gotten. Okay, the borders are secured again. Which is great. It is great. So now we've got these nasty ridges. Which, like, if those weren't there, that would look pretty okay. So, what if I go down to 2? Yeah, we have unsecured borders now. Weird fucking borders now. Okay. So, 3 is the answer. We want the closest 3 chunks. Now, I think what's just happening here is that on the corners... Like, let me throw a breakpoint down here and we can look at some values. Okay, just changing it up a little bit. I have a feeling what I just changed will not change anything from what it looks like right here. If I'm not mistaken. Okay, it did. Okay, it did. What are the and these probably just need to be divided by 2? Wait, why does that offset then? Whereas before, what up? That's what looked the closest. Was that right there? Okay, so that is properly blending the edges. But the corners... And so what are these numbers? And if I do +1, because technically this is 4 values worth of information here. So I want to do altitude weights +1, because there's 3 altitude weights. mean, does that look any better? I feel like it's like the exact fucking same. Putting a breakpoint there. We need to check out some of these values. Hello, please? What? Okay, maybe I didn't actually. Maybe I didn't pick up that change. We'll try that again. What does that look like? Okay, no, yeah, that does look the same. That do look the same. It do. Okay. Our weights are what they are. The weights that I'm getting seem good. Because changing it to max distance to edge actually allowed my values to blend together. Now, it's like the closer they get to the center, the more fucky they get. And it is dependent on like the diagonal, the corners, really. It doesn't do that on the cardinal direction ones. Only on the ordinal direction ones. So what is my output volume or altitude here? 0.22, which is not correct. Now it's just 0.28. That also doesn't seem correct. I guess there kind of are some artifacts. Ooh, what is that? Oh no. Okay, so the very edge is a little off now, too. On, like, the straight side. Yep, there it is. There it is. But what does it all mean, Basil? What does it all mean? And it's weird because if I do this, it's like totally off, right? Because this number is going to be like it's going to be higher than. I want the average of those three weights plus the chunk altitude The amount of chunk altitude? I feel like I've done this before and it looked worse. Yeah, so I don't know why that I'm adding too much chunk altitude, I suppose. Moxie, stop it! Sorry. Okay, dog is no longer freaking out. Hopefully it stays that way. And she just fucking barked again. Great. Okay, yeah, so why... I would think that this would work. But I guess I'm using too much. So what, like, that actually gives me like a, what am I looking for here? You know, if I put a breakpoint here, I want to see what average altitude modifier comes out to be. It actually gives me a number that looks reasonable. But it just doesn't line up. Because the number should be very close to what the chunk's altitude is. I mean, in this case, it's way fucking higher. Wait, why is that? Wait. But yet that point is at 0.48? Wait, it's fucking 0. Why wasn't this triggering? Ensure. Should I have done check? What? How do I get that to throw a fucking breakpoint? Okay, I'll do it myself. I don't know how those work. If it's not equal, we have an error. Generate map data. Okay, well, we'll throw a breakpoint there. And so I guess that's not been the case this whole time. So let's also change this. Okay, so yeah, that's not right. An average altitude is 0. It's fucking 0. Why would it be 0? Because this should be, what am I looking at? This should be 1. Trunk altitude, so we do vert distance to center, which is 0. Divided by max distance, ooh. I'm just now realizing that this would never intersect with anything. And it's returning that. Why don't I just return chunk altitude here? Because I think that's the only case that that would happen. I think the 0-0 case is the only case that that would happen. Okay, so we didn't hit that breakpoint. Okay, so we kind of fixed that issue. But now I know that that's actually where the chunk altitude should be lerping from. So we're not high enough. Can we get much higher? So high. -1? Are we dividing too much? Another shot in the dark here. Okay, so that made it worse. Oh right. I need to do parentheses there. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, that didn't make a difference, really. Carpet bomb debugging? Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm fucking resorting to. How you doing, the firm stool? I hope your problems are being solved easier than mine. I will wish that upon you. Now, if I used the I don't think that this is the right answer, but I'm going to try it anyway. What am I lerping between? I don't even know what I would lerp between there. Hang on. So what if I just did altitude weighted average? What if I just did this? What if I just did that? Oh, that looks a lot better. Oh, and our border... Oh, no, they're not. Fuck! The borders are insecured. The borders are insecured. Okay, what does that value look like, though? Show me what the value. It's probably the altitude weighted average is 1.4 divided by what are the averages here. And so that, I mean, that probably brings me to have values that look reasonable-ish. 0.48, yeah. Okay, so that ain't the answer either. And so what's my amount of chunk? What's my birth alpha? It's 0.5. My chunk altitude is 0.453 times 0.5 is 0.226. Yeah, that's about right. What am I doing? Back to ground zero. Just add chunk altitude, not maybe. I want not straight chunk altitude. What was I thinking in my head? I wanted what was it? I wanted the amount of chunk altitude. Just double weight that. Double weight that. Yeah, back to where we were. So this is like the closest I've fucking gotten. What? I have my edges aligned. The borders are secure. But it's one, the altitude should be way up here. Up on that point. And does it, I mean, does that make it any closer? Did that make it closer, or is that about the same height? What if I only divide it by like 2? What if I do that? I mean, I guess that did bring it up closer to that. And the borders are still secured. Okay, what if I just did it to the total sum? I think my bugs are indeed more manageable than this, it seems, at least. Well, I'm happy for you. Hey, cool game dev. What's cooking? More altitude shifts. Okay, that seems too much. That's too high. Too high. We're just taking shots in the dark and trying to solve a problem. That's essentially what we're trying to do here. I mean, I suppose that's like the close-ish-est. We finally got the borders aligned, except for on that point. So something's definitely happening that doesn't need to happen. And so it should be lerping very smoothly from this point. The center point is correct. And the edges are relatively correct, except for that one, these couple points right here. See, it draws like a diamond to that point. Draws like a line there, and then a diamond there. Then across. And I guess what got the edges to line up was dividing by the max distance to edge times 2. What if I divided that by 2? Times 2 was necessary for the chunk altitude. But if I divided that by 2, what would that do to the number? What would that do to alpha? It would make it larger, right? If I have the vert distance to neighbor chunk, and I divide by the max distance to edge, which is from the chunk center to the edge at the angle of the point. And that's going to make less chunks apply. I don't think that would do anything. I don't foresee that helping whatsoever. Yeah, and now all of our borders are insecure again. And we still have the same pattern. So this is the worst. This is the worst of both worlds. Okay, so using this alpha, which seems on some level to be the right altitude modifier, if I take that alpha times the neighbor chunk altitude. That on some level seems to be correct, because it does make the edges line up. Now, is it just correct on the edges? So I have this red line right here. And I multiply this times 2, and then I divide this length by that. So that means right here is going to be 0.5 of whatever this is. That feels right. It feels right. And for some reason, using that distance times 2 makes, when I'm dividing the, oh god, this gnat, hang on. Got it, nice. For some reason, using this distance and dividing it by this distance somehow makes the edges line up. And that was a shot in the dark. I don't know why that works. And doing that somehow makes these... What I think is actually happening is that the corners are actually the correct height. Okay, that's wrong. We didn't rebuild. Rebuild. So I think actually, if I pause, well, no, they're not quite right, actually, at all. So this center point is at the correct altitude. Now, relatively speaking, these are all at the correct altitude, but they're not. They should be probably up here, because the values I'm getting breakpoint there. Point. Well, actually, those look okay. Okay, those look okay. Why are they so different then? Because the chunk altitude is 0.46, so it would make sense that some of the points are at 0.48. That's true, and also I have this breakpoint being hit, where if the center point is not equal to chunk out, the very center point what, that's when I'm dividing by 2? Hang on. Kinda got lost in the sauce there for a second. Okay, we're all there. Okay, 0.5, 0.42, 0.5, 0.43, 0.43. I mean, those were quite jagged, right? We're going... Well, I might have skipped to different chunks because this is happening async, so this is not necessarily in order. Okay, yeah, so that was a different chunk. But the values are around the same... Or not around the same, around the correct range in the 0.4s, which are around what these chunks are. So that's just dividing by 2. What? And that's just dividing by 2. I guess maybe it's just not lerping correctly all the way in or something. I don't know. I have no idea what. Oh, I thought I was so close. I thought I was about to get it, and then here we're stuck again. I thought this would be... Do I need to do the weight thing again, maybe? So I do have a weight sum. Let's try dividing by weight sum. I have no idea. Again, no idea what this value is going to be. Okay, breakpoint. What is weight sum? Is 0. Okay, that ain't right. Okay, we're dividing by 0. Sick. Sick. Wait, why is that 0? How is that 0? What? How is that 0? I mean, that doesn't matter, right? Yeah, that doesn't matter. What if it's not 1 minus or something? Okay, we're gonna restart. Let's not do a 1 minus and see what happens. I have a feeling that's wrong, but we will see. Okay. I mean, maybe that's an okay number. Okay, so now it's actually higher. We have the pinhole issue again. Or the borders are still... The borders are secure. They are still secured. Albeit, yeah, that one point on the edge is not. Do I go back to dividing by altitude weights num? I have a feeling that that little hole on the edge is a different issue than just the incorrect pattern here. Still on the edge, which is good. Try that. Okay, and our borders are off now, because I've added the... Okay, so let's divide by a little bit more. I mean, I suppose that's the closest I've gotten. So that edge actually looks very good up until, you know, we get very, very close to the center. Long time no see, what are you working on today? Maybe the same thing you last saw me doing. I am still working on trying to blend altitudes between chunks. What is the order you're going through the neighboring chunks? Does the order matter? No, the order shouldn't matter. Because I'm essentially averaging the neighbor chunks. I'm essentially doing something like a weighted sum. Or not a weighted sum, a weighted average between the neighboring chunks. And so, regardless of what order, you know, I calculate the distances, distance is what I'm using to weight. Regardless of that order, they still get divided out to the same number. We're just going to increase that and see what happens. Let's just keep dividing by bigger and bigger numbers. And see what happens. Okay, that's too low. And then +1 was like... I mean, there's more wrong than just this, right? That's like the closest I've gotten. But I mean, these patterns that are being drawn. Are quite incorrect. But the most important part is my borders are lining up, which is something I was struggling with so hard. It's like I can't, the patterns getting drawn I've been able to not have happen, but then what happens is none of the borders are lined up. They're all offset from each other. And now that I have the borders lined up, I can't get these patterns to be smooth lurps and stuff like that. And this is going to be the same thing, right? Throw some breakpoints there. What are my alpha values looking like? Suppose I should put a breakpoint there, right? Yeah, so that's above 1. Which means I'm looking at a neighbor chunk that's like on the other side. And I don't think that I want those to be affected. So it'll just offset the whole thing. And so this is going to end up looking the same. Essentially filtering out the same things in a different way. It actually looks a little bit different. Right? That's a different pattern. It's a very interesting pattern. But the borders still line up quite perfectly. Except for the one point on the edge. Or oh, do these line up now? Let me look at the wireframe here. Yeah, I mean, if I can't tell where the actual edge is, then that means they line up perfectly. That kind of fixed that issue. So I guess that there's some that are doing more than just 3. Some points that are doing more than just 3 neighbors, 3 weighted neighbor altitudes. So yeah, most of them are going to be 3. It's another 3, another 3. Just gonna click through a bunch of these, see if I get anything that's not a 3. I mean, eventually I should get there. There's just... Turns out there's a lot of vertices. I mean, there's got to be somewhere, right? I mean, maybe it's just those one edge verts are taking into account either more or less. Maybe they're taking into account less, and that's the actual answer. So maybe it's... Okay, yeah, we're just gonna undo that, and then I just want to take a peek at some of the outcome values. So it's 0.33. That's not, these are not the right values. We're looking for things around 0.4, because I think most of those chunks that we're looking at have altitudes of like 0.48-ish. Yeah, so the very center point is correct for all these. Because I have an assertion that'll have a breakpoint. And actually, the very center chunk is actually down here. Right there. That's where things should be. So, am I dividing by what? What is happening? I'm dividing by altitude weights here. Let's just divide by 2. Divide by 2 and see what happens. No reason. Oh my dear. Okay, so we need to divide by a larger number. So let's do +1. And we need to wrap that with parentheses actually. Close. Did I get that? No, I didn't. Okay, so recompile. Can't believe there's actually 6 people watching me trying to fucking troubleshoot this. Thank you all for your attention. I wish I was working on more exciting things. I really do. I have been working on this for like, what is this, day 5? Day 4? I think it's day 5. I felt like I was closer because I got the borders to line up, but yeah, that's not exactly what I'm looking for, now is it? And so if I do every neighbor chunk, I'll show you what happens there. So this is going to get me the weighted value of every neighbor chunk, even if it's over 1. It's going to be quite incorrect, but it might lerp everything, no, so it still doesn't lerp correctly. And now the borders are off as well, so... So yeah. And actually, did that look... How bad did that look? I don't think that's right. Well, let me look at that again. There's no way that's going to be right, though. There's no way I want to weight every vert with every value, right? With every neighbor chunk value. There's no way that's right. I mean, it's pretty smooth, all things considered, but it is off. So... What if I didn't do... What if I didn't do any of the chunk value, of the chunk altitude? Okay, that's very off now. Okay. Back to where we were. Okay, this is back to where we were. What haven't I tried? Interesting patterns. Yeah, it is. They are interesting patterns. That's for sure. So have I done the adding this separately? Without the 1 minus alpha? Because I was doing 1 minus. Yeah, that's even worse. Okay. What's happening? So yeah, I'm adding way too much onto it. And, okay, and we're not lined up. Okay, so that's just a complete wrong. And so I was adding too much on it because the amount of chunk altitude was not being divided out. Back to the drawing board. Let me think about whether I should be doing a 1 minus here or not. The alpha for the distance from vert to neighbor chunk, we divide it by the max distance to edge, which I don't know why we do that, but that makes the edges line up somehow. And so that will give me what the percentage, what would that give me? So say I'm considering this point right here. I take this distance divided by 2 times this distance. I guess that would gives me the distance away from the chunk center as a ratio of, and it should be, I guess, a value from, I want it to be a value from 0 to 0.5, right? Because this value should be 0 when it gets to here. Like if I'm thinking about how this value should transform as the point moves closer, I would want it to be 0.5 at the edge. Would I want it to be 0.5 at the edge? I definitely want it to be 0.5 at the midpoint between these two. But do I want it to be 0.5 at every? I mean, that would work, right? I mean, it would work until... Because I also need to factor in some of this and some of this. Whatever this value is. Call that 0.49, sure. I guess what I could do instead... Yeah, maybe this would factor out the chunks that I don't care about even more. Is if I have this distance, right? And I'm doing 2 times that distance to divide by, which means any chunk that's within 2 times this distance is going to be considered. Is that what I want? or it's 2 times that distance. What do I divide by? Because when I did something like, when I'm not dividing by 2 times this amount, it doesn't line up. All chunks are equally spaced on the XY plane. Cardinally, yes. Ordinally, of course, they would be different because they're diagonal from each other. But yes, they are equidistant. They are all the same size. In other words, and so this distance is actually 12k. And then this distance is like, it's like 18.8k or something like that in Unreal units. And I mean, what I'm trying to do is like take each of these values and lerp between them depending on where the point is with like some sort of weighted sum. What is considered adjacent? 4 neighbors or 8? It would be 8. Yeah, because I want these points to line up here, right? I'm pretty sure if I only considered the cardinal directions, then these points could technically be off, and they probably would be, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that would be the case. So I feel like I may need to do some, because I had to do some sort of intersection equation to get this length, and that got me something useful. So I feel like I have to do something, but I'm only doing this for the chunk that the vert is in. So I'm thinking maybe I have to do something like that. You know, that's what this red line here was for, was me trying to figure out, okay, if I get this number, do I divide by 2 times that? You know? Maybe I do. But it's just weird that I tried this, dividing by this number and this number here, and it worked pretty freaking well. Two times that number. Like, I want to try getting this number here, and see if that helps me. The reason I'm just not jumping for that right now is because I technically have something that's kind of close on some level. And so if I got, because what I would want is, let's say I had a point right here, and let's say these distances are equal, so it's halfway. I would want that to be 0.25 or 0.75 of this number, and plus 0.25 of that number. Right, and I wouldn't need or want these ones, but I assume my equation would just kind of divide those out. Or at least maybe not consider them because they're so far away. But then it's like, I don't know what those numbers would be for a point like here, where it's like in the middle. Hi, Moxie. Moxie, do you know math? Can you help me with math? She looks confused. Does that help me? If I get 2 times that, the order you apply this low pass filter should matter. I'm not sure what you mean by low pass filter. But I'm like 95% sure that order doesn't matter here. I'm like 98% sure order doesn't matter here. Because I'm essentially doing a weighted average of all of these values based on their distances, based on the distance this vert is away from each center in some capacity. What are you doing? You're such a chunky pup. Moxie, can you help me? Can you help me? Go lay in the puppy bed. No? Okay. Miss. Rude. Okay. Back on track here. Yeah, I mean, because this times 2 is actually also what it's doing is filtering out chunks that are too far away via this line here. Because when we divide them, if it's over 1, we're gonna skip it. But that's also why those patterns are getting drawn, which, like, I understand that, like, it's going to change, you know, flow at that, you know, at each of those lines. And that's okay. I am expecting it to lerp smoothly up to that value. But I guess I would need an angle, right? I need something to do with the angle, I think, to get that to smooth lerp. And I am using that distance angle, but maybe I also need to use this one. But like 2 times this would... What would that give me? If I had 2 times that, it would be like out here. And I would divide that. Well, I mean, I guess that would just be... It should be 2 times this, right? That's what it should be. So 2 times that would be like out there. And then if I divide this by this, that would give me like... And then I would have to do a 1 minus on it to basically get me what that number should be. And if I did right here, if I had the very edge point, that would be 0.5. And now let's do that for all the way up there. And the point would be right there. My dog loves to freak out when other dogs outside are barking, and my neighbors leave their dogs outside all the time. In image processing, taking a 3x3 matrix / kernel and rolling it across the image to smooth it is called a low pass filter, and the order there matters. But what you're doing here might be always working on the original values. I don't want to create confusion. Yeah, so the center point, I don't know if this maybe, like this point right there, the very center, is always going to be that value. And so that's why I use this as an example, like halfway between, I would want halfway between 0.48 and 0.46, I would want that point to be at 0.47. And then, you know, as I go this direction, you know, more of this chunk's value gets put into it. And, yeah, potentially some of this chunk's value. So when that center becomes a neighbor, its value affects the next point. So order matters. No, I mean the order is always going to be the same. Like these are deterministic in that regard. And when I mean the order is always going to be the same, like these chunks are always in the same position. So it doesn't matter what order I process the neighbor chunks in, because I'm multiplying and dividing. And I mean the calculations I'm doing are not order dependent. A chunk doesn't like become the neighbor of an other chunk. It just always is, right? Like we're not like I always know what these values are. I always know these values. These are determined in advance. I got that. And then right here. And then 2 times that distance. But if I always 2 times the distance to... Yeah, I don't think I would want to... I don't think I want to do anything with the... distance to chunk, do I? My dog is freaking out. Give me a second. Okay, back to this fucking problem. And like I was saying, like using this length as the divisor gets us an okay value. Let's go back and look at what we have here. Okay, that's bad. What was I doing here? Okay, so this is what we're working with here. And this is doing... Oh yeah, I was trying to figure out if I wanted a 1 minus or not. So if I had this value times 2, be like that. I mean, it should just go to the other... It should touch the two sides, right? Essentially is what that would say. And then this, I divide this distance by that, and then I would get basically... What would I get there? What would I get by doing that? I don't understand what that gets. It's like how far... It's like how far I am to this trunk relative to the max distance of the edge points. I mean, this is somehow working and matching up the edge points, but I don't understand, like, mathematically what this is actually doing. And I don't understand if I would want a 1 minus there or not. Because it would be like, it's like that distance, so it would be like that-ish, like that-ish. It's like, do I want this section, or do I want this section? This section. Because this is 1 minus alpha, and this is just alpha, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, because if they're equidistant, would that ever be the case? Would they ever be equidistant? No, they wouldn't, right? 'Cause what happened when I divided by 2 here? But yeah, I'm now no longer lined up. But the lerp, the smooth lerp looks a little bit better. But it's not correct. So... like, I don't, why is doing this weighted average so difficult? Distances are all, yeah, so yeah, it's all based on vectors with 0 and a z component. That somehow looks better? Yeah, again, I still don't really understand what the alpha is giving me when I flip it like that. Let me look at the values, see if that gives me any information. Yeah, the altitude weights. What values am I getting from these chunks? And for some reason, if I add these all up and divide by 4, so there's two different ways I can do this. So I have the amount of the current chunk altitude, 0.25, and then I have the amount of each of the the 3 neighbor chunks for this vert, and this is for the vertex in the very corner. And so I can either add these up and divide by 3 and add it to this number, or I can add all of them up and divide by 4. For some reason, when I add all of them up and divide by 4, they match better, but that's the incorrect value, because it should be something around the original, it should be like halfway in between this and like whatever the neighbor chunk is at that corner, which would be okay, so we're considering chunk -1, 0, so that's to the left 1. And so the top left of that chunk would be -2, -1. So it should be ideally halfway between this value and not halfway between this value. It should be halfway between the value of whatever this trunk is. This is an alpha value of that, which maybe has the appropriate alpha. The alpha should be 0.5 there, and so maybe it multiplied something like a 0.48, you know, by 0.5. And got that number. And my original implementation of this was using this distance to divide by this distance, and that always had my borders offset from each other. My altitude weights look like that. And what do my final numbers look like? A 0.23, yeah. 0.23, yeah. They should be around 0.48 and stuff. But it matches up. And so let's do the 1 minus. Well, I am dividing it, but hang on. Let me get rid of that +1 and try again. .32, 32, 32, 329, 331, 332. Yeah, these are still a little. These are small. These are too small. Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. Because yeah, the center point is what the altitude should be. I can't even fucking tell where that is. It's like right where his crotch is, I suppose. Interesting. Okay, and so let's do the 1 minus now. Again, the numbers are too small. It should be, again, it should be around 0.48s, 0.45s, 0.5s. So, but we line up. And what, I guess I didn't check what the weights looked like here. So let's check the weights. I mean, they're about the same numbers. It's just slightly lower. So I really feel like what it should be is like because right now this gets initialized with the amount of chunk altitude, which at those corner ones would be 0.5. Which I think is what I want, which would like this is why I drew the rainbow square here. Because I would want, I think I would want the square, like this would be 0.1, 0.2, or you know, whatever these numbers are. Like, the orange would all have the same numbers for this chunk. And I guess what I want, rather than doing this line, which I'm not doing, or it's just a sketch. What if I did instead that line? Because this is the intersection line. Well, I guess that's the same. That's the same, right? That's the same length. That's why this works. That would be the same length as that. Yeah. Well, not in these cases, right? Because this would be intersecting right there. Or no, because I'm intersecting at the edge here, so it wouldn't necessarily. Maybe that's why. It would be the same for the cardinal direction chunks, but here to here would not be the same. So maybe I do need to do. Maybe I do need to do that. Rather than distance from point to chunk center, I do distance from this point's projected edge intersection to the center. I have a feeling that's going to make the edge points offset again. I kind of feel like that's what I may want. No, because then if the point is on the edge, it's going to be the same. Well, it should be 0.5. Well, it would return 0.5 for this one as well. So no, that wouldn't really help me. Because it would always return 0.5 for any edge point for any chunk. If this point happened to be on the edge, like right there. So that wouldn't do anything. When you're computing those intersections and triangles, do you eventually want the distance on the white line? The projection of the intersection on the white line, I mean. So what I do, I'll go back over what I do. So here's some of the code here. What I do is what I'm initially looking for is how far away from the center am I in terms of a ratio, right? I don't just want the distance. So this is the point. See how I'm pointing to it here? This is the point in question, right? So I have this distance fairly easily, right? Because I have the center, I have this point, I know the distance. But what I want is that distance as a ratio of its distance to edge, pretty much. And so what I do is I have this point and I have this point, and I just project that way far out here, somewhere where I know it will intersect. And I create a polygon 2 with my chunk vertices, and I create a line segment with that really long line, and I find the intersection. And I can show that here. And so that gives me this point. And so I use this distance times 2. I'll tell you why I want times 2 here in a second. And I divide it by this distance. And what that does, here's that distance times 2, max distance to edge, world chunk location to edge intersection, the vertex distance to center, divided by that max distance to edge, do a 1 minus. And that's because I want it to be I want this value to be multiplied by 0.5 here at this point. So when I'm on the edge, I want this chunk's weighted value to be 0.5. So that's why I am getting the intersection here and I have to do that at an angle, right? I can't just do that with the distance from chunk to chunk or the distance to one axis edge because I need it at an angle to draw essentially this box. Because when I was just doing it based on a radius, everything was offset. This is the only thing that I've done that actually gets it to work. And then what I do is, and we can look at that intersection box after I get through all these. So here is that intersection box. And so you can see the lines being drawn from each most of the verts, all the way to the edge of the box, and you can see where they intersect. The smallest line segment is not too small, right? Numerically speaking. Not too sure how to answer that. I highly doubt numbers being too small is an issue here, if that's what you're saying. I do, at 0, 0, the line segment is 0, right, because it's the same point. So I do a return there for the center, and I just return early. But I do that somewhere, I swear. Right there. I just return the chunk altitude. And so I get like this chunk's weighted value. Now I need the weighted values of each of the what I think would be the next 3 closest chunks. And the only thing that I've done that has actually made each of these borders line up to each chunk is to take the distance from here to here, or whatever the center. I guess I'm drawing the center up here. So over there, take that distance and then again divide it by the same denominator that I did for this chunk. And I did a 1 minus for this chunk. I am fairly certain So that makes me feel like I should also be doing a 1 minus the other chunks. But yeah, it's this value times 2, because that's what I'm calling my max distance. Right, that would be a distance like that. And I would want it to be, if I got that value, or if I got, let's say I'm calculating this point, that would be half the distance of this line. So I would get 0.5, which is what I think I would want. I would want half of this value on the edge. And then I would also, what I'm thinking is that I would want half of this value, probably half of that value, and it should be, because I'm using this, which is the equivalent to that, from the center to that intersection. So I think if this point were in question, I would want 0.5 of this, 0.5 of this. I don't know how much it would be of this. I don't know how much it would be of that, but I'm dividing it by this value, which is different. Right, it's no, like, this is not the same as... It's not the same distance. So it would be something different. And that has reliably made these lines, this edge, line up with every nearby chunk doing that. But what's happening is I get these really weird patterns being drawn, especially like along here, and then I guess I just get like some like weirdness. And then I just take all those, I mean, they're essentially lerped values. And when I do a lerp between chunk altitude and neighbor chunk altitude, it's going to be all offset again. Like, I think the chunk will actually be smooth now, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, yeah, pretty smooth, all things considered, but yeah, again, the edges are off now. You know, maybe we're actually, maybe we're actually correct on the cardinal direction edges. We may actually be correct. But as soon as we start factoring in the corner chunks, everything starts to get thrown off a little bit there. The number of centroids that affect each value is known and fixed. Again, not sure what you mean by centroids there. The number of chunks that affect a vert should be known and fixed, if that's what you're saying. What if I did a 1 minus here? So that just drew a completely weird pattern. Yeah, where the patterns get drawn is definitely where these fucking gnats, man. Yeah, the lines are definitely being drawn wherever chunks stop affecting things, and you can see like where these two lines end, they stop matching up. I think you should check that, you do check that the number of neighbors is correct for everything. Yeah, I mean, it should be filtering them out. And it should be only going for the closest 3. And then, like, for these points in here, like, I guess this line is being drawn from how I'm doing the division here, because I'm dividing by max distance to edge. So if I were to divide by max distance to chunk, I think this is what I had where it was actually smooth. But it was just offset. The edges weren't lining up. Well, no, not exactly, I suppose. So forget that. But yeah, this is what's doing that. And alpha is over 1 if it's beyond this distance, is how that would work. But like I could do something like, I do have getting like the closest to 3 every time. So if I did closest 3 and then didn't do that, I'm not sure that this would change anything. This might be the exact same. It's actually kind of different. Greater than or equal to? Yeah, I mean, I highly doubt that. I mean, alpha should never, I don't... Yeah, I mean, I think I want to include the zeros and the ones. To me, it's interesting that when I do it this way, where I'm lerping, where I'm doing a lerp between neighbor chunk altitude and chunk altitude based on the max distance to edge, it's correct in the cardinal directions, but the ordinal directions it is incorrect. Let's just do the closest to 1. What happens when I just do the closest to 1? I can draw like triangles in there. I mean, that's not super far off or anything. I mean, it's a little off. But I mean, it just doesn't, so it's like all these vertices are only taken into account this chunk. And then the second they get over here, they switch over to this chunk. why I wanted ratios as opposed to just doing the average max distance. I mean, I would need a ratio at some point, whether up front or at the end. Because it could be distance weighted directly. Yeah, so like... Yeah, I mean, I could just get the average distance to each of these, the center of each of those chunks, and then divide that distance by, you know, twice that. It would be the same, right? That would be the same outcome. I'm just doing it for each one. Ratios have different meanings for diagonal and adjacent. I mean, I'm using the same divisor, so I don't think it necessarily does have a different meaning. I think if I use a different divisor, it does. And I have had implementations where I've tried that, where I've used the distance between the two chunks as the denominator. Yeah, it is now. I mean, what I'm trying now, it's not fixed. It is set to the distance between chunks. And so, yeah. Actually, I think maybe there's like one... There may be a few verts that are actually lined up on the edge. This way. The denominators I've tried using are only this distance, even for diagonal ones. Only this distance, even for cardinal ones. And this distance only for cardinal ones, and this distance only for diagonal ones. None of that has seemed to work, but using this distance times 2 does actually make it line up all the way across the board. So that's what I have stuck with and tried to tinker with. Closest 2? Should I just try closest 2? And this is using the lerped value without adding into account the original weight of the chunk. And so yeah, when I do the lerped value, it doesn't connect all the edges. But when I do this alpha value, but when I use this value, did I run that already? Run. Makes all the edges line up. No, it does not. What? Wait, what have I done? Oh yeah, because I need to include the original. Because this is now like... This is like combining chunk altitude and neighbor chunk altitude together in one. This is saying like, how much of this chunk do I want? And so then I need to initialize this to amount of chunk altitude, or else it's off. So this I believe is what makes it line up together. Oh my god, what is happening? What have I done? Yeah, but the thing is, I don't know what, even if I just did it for 3 points, like, I don't know, I still wouldn't know what I want the points to be. I don't think. Because I did think about that. I did think about creating, like, a test level or something. I did something like... What the hell was I doing? I was doing something like that. Oh, is this because I'm using closest to chunks instead of neighbor verts? Or no, I didn't want to do that. Hang on. Like, I guess I know what I want the edge points to be. I don't know what I want the interior points to be. Okay, well, we're here, and the borders are now lined up, but it's egregious. But it's egregious because I'm not dividing anything. Quick 3-1. Am I dividing by 0 again here? I wouldn't have thought that like just smooth blending between squares of different values would be that difficult. I mean, someone has solved this before, right? I don't know why that took so long to run. What on earth? I have no idea what the hell that was. Shot in the dark. I mean, I would have thought the answer is just a weighted average. I guess I'm just not weighting properly. Is there like a weighted average function in Unreal Engine?
Has 75% impact.
That's a moving average. I don't really need a moving average. I mean, is the answer not a weighted average? I don't know what else the answer would be to blend between chunk altitudes. I have a strong conviction in that doing this is right for getting this weight. I don't have a strong conviction in getting those weights right. MS Paint God. Oh, odd. You've come to see me wallow in my lack of math knowledge. I have been struggling. Now I've forgotten what happens if I let's take the rather undo that. And what happens if I do that? Is that like way more off? I think this is probably going to be way more off. Essentially what I'm trying to do here is like each of my chunks have an altitude value that is going to be what their centermost point's altitude is. Right there. That, like for this one, it's 0.48. It's a value between 0 and 1. And I'm trying to smooth lerp. Okay, so what I've done here is I've offset the edges. So that's no bueno. But when I do that, the edges should match up now. And so before I could never get the edges to match up, and then I tried a new approach, and now I can get some of the edges to match up. What are those things? Trunks? Chunks. They don't look that bad, come on. But yeah, but now it's not smooth blending. Now that you explained it, I understand the problem more, but I still don't get how the final average altitude of a point in a chunk doesn't affect the neighboring chunk as well. Order matters, but your result looks too reasonable even right now, so I'm probably wrong. Yeah, still, I'm like 99% sure that order does not matter. Because each chunk has a deterministic value for its altitude, 0.48, and it's all based on this map, right? The dark and light on here, as I hover, you can see this number up here. So for chunk 00, it's 48, the next one is 0.5, 51, 46, 38, and going back to the MS Paint, like, if I have like this point right here is probably the easiest one to consider, right? What I want is I need to get the max distance at this angle of the square, which is just straight across, and I'm going to multiply it by 2 so that I can divide this distance by this distance. And when I do, I will get 0.5 because it is halfway from the max distance, and what I want to do is I want to take this 0.5 and multiply it by this chunk's value, which is 0.48, for this point. Now I also want to do the same thing for this chunk, and that should be the same thing, 0.5 as well. And so I get half of this plus half of this should equal 0.47. That one's easy to consider. I know what I want that point to be. Now I would know what I want that point to be as well. The same scenario, but using a different distance here. Now, these ones are more difficult, right? I had to actually project the point onto the edge, get the edge intersection, get this distance, and times that by 2. And so that's actually the method that I'm using to get this distance. Is that I just take a segment from here to here, and I project it, and then I get the intersection of the box. And the problem is, it's like, for these ones right on the line, I know what I want the value to be. But for all the ones in the middle, like, I want a weighted value based on its distance away. And that's the part I guess I'm struggling with. Is what I'm doing is I'm taking, let's say we're considering this point, right? I'm fairly confident I have gotten its chunk's weight correct, which is just this distance times 2. We take this distance and divide it by this distance times 2. And I'm fairly certain that that's correct. Now, I want a weighted value for each of these, I believe. Maybe it's just these two. Maybe it's just these two. I don't know, but with just adjacent. So what, you mean like just the closest one chunk? Is that what you mean? Essentially, I think this would match up on the edges, but there's going to be these nasty lines down the corners, expectedly, right? Because then yeah, and then these ones these would never be right? Because I'm never considering that chunk. I don't think, at least not properly. Yeah, that's what happens there. think that this would probably be what I want to make it a little smoother. So the cardinal directions and the diagonals are easy to compute. They're easy to think of in your head as to what the values should be. Easy to compute is I guess, similar to that. It's like I need an equation that does it all, right? I need an equation that's is like for this I only really need to consider, if it's on this line, I really only need to consider these two chunks. But I need to keep in my mind that it's also going to get these two chunks weighted value, and but they should get weighted out by this one and this one. The tiny spikes I see are the steps you consider. They're the vertices, if that's what you mean. And so I'm calculating each vertice's altitude. And so yeah, each spike would be like a vert. And then there's the very center vert, and that is actually the center vert I automatically set to the correct value. So that's actually, this is actually where it should be blending away from. So the end result is a landscape system that's procedural. Well, I already have that part. That part I have. What I'm trying to do, specifically, is, get up. What I'm trying to do is make the altitude match up with the lightness and darkness of this map. So like over here, you can see an altitude value up here. So if I go down to this really bright area, it's all altitude 1. That's the highest you can get. And so I want that in the world to be higher than these points down here. 0 is sea, right? That's sea level. And so all these chunks around it have lower altitudes. And so I want those to be lower. Where does the map come from? So yeah, yet again, procedural generation. So I procedurally generate, these are actually all Voronoi cells. I generate a ton of them, and then I go through and I assign them random colors. And, you know, if they happen to be the same color, they get combined into the same zone or biome. And so I have that all working. And then I actually have, what you're seeing here is actually the border, right? So if you remember the Spline Saga, if anyone was here for that, that's why this one row is raised here, because it's the border in between this red and blue zone. And then these white spots are the chunk entrances. It's how you would get from zone to zone. Or not the chunk entrances, but the biome entrances. Voronoi slaps, it do slap. And so like the actual, the dark and light is actually Voronoi as well. It's just Voronoi from a material shader. And then the colors, the zones, that I lay another layer of Voronoi on top of it, but it's actually Delune triangle Voronoi. So I do that in memory, and I do that with C++, not material. So yeah, that's all working. And then another thing I have working is using the PCG framework to, the PCG framework actually knows what biome it's rendering based on the color that it's at in the map. So that's another cool thing that I have working. So, and like the noise is all procedural as well. So like you see how it's all like bumpy and raised, like that noise I've already had. Like I can just I can actually just take this out, right? If I just comment that out, we'll see what the BCG sounds awesome. Haven't touched it yet. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet. It could procedurally place your mushrooms and stuff in your world, your mushrooms and herbs and stuff. And so here's what the unadulterated noise looks like. Unadulterated plus border, without any altitude information on it. So the entire world looks like that. I don't want the whole world to look like that. I want the different biomes to have different altitudes, and I want different altitudes to have different kinds of features and stuff. Different PCG graphs and whatnot. So yeah. Let's go back to using the neighbor chunk locations. They're crushing us just a matter of time. Well, I've spent like 5 days on this problem. And what I thought would just be a simple weighted... I say simple. I have no idea how to do a fucking weighted sum. This is just the implementation that I've stumbled across. I didn't think it would be this difficult. I didn't think a weighted sum based on distance of points and squares would be that difficult. But I guess today I did have a bit of a breakthrough in that I can actually get the borders to line up with each other. But I'm just getting really weird patterns. And the output number, like the final value, should actually be quite close, right? It should be in the, for these chunks I'm considering, it should be in the 0.4s and the 0.5s and whatnot. And so yeah, final value is 0.23. That's like that's definitely, I'm dividing by too much there. Yeah, and so I'm getting these. I mean, the patterns make sense. I know why the patterns are happening, I just don't know how to get them to go away. Right, because the patterns are happening because they consider... It's the start and begin of considering a new chunk. So the final value is still not quite the amount of chunk that this is the amount that is this amount right there, and I am quite certain that that value is correct. Now the altitude weighted average, this value, is a combination of each of the three closest ones. Why don't you consider all neighboring chunks for each point? So when I do that, I get a smooth terrain, but then it's offset from, like, there are gaps in the borders, and it's offset from the rest of the chunks. And my ideology behind that is like, so here's the halfway point, right? Here's a halfway point. Why can't I click that? What the hell is happening here? There we go. Jesus. So the halfway point. If I want my middle point to be 0.48, or in other words, for this number to be kind of like the pseudo average of this chunk, or the representative of this chunk, the 0.46 should be filtered out by the time it gets to this line. Because that's when this chunk will start to filter in. Will factor in. So that's why I don't want to consider, really, you know, from there, but that's why I just do, I think I only need 3. For any given point, depending on where it's at, I only need the 3 closest. You know, if I'm up here, I would want these 3, and if I'm down here, I'd want these 3. I'm pretty sure that's the only information I need. And I can do the same kind of idea from the corner. Right, where if I'm like this what am I trying to say here? Like this chunk should be done factor in by the time I get to this corner, because that's when this chunk this chunk starts affecting it. And I suppose maybe there's some, because I was getting the strong ridges on right here on these directions. I suppose certain things either were or weren't factoring in at the rate that I wanted them to be. All 8 makes sense. The weighted part of the average should take care of the influence. No. Inverse distance, I suppose. I don't think so. Not necessarily, because like this number here could technically be something like 0.9. And this could be something like 0.2. And then these could all be like 0.5s. Right? And I don't want, if I want this center point to be 0.48, I want this to be factored out by the time I get to that centerpiece. And like I can show you what happened. I can, like, if I just take that out, I can factor in all of them. If I get rid of that. Dinictive, yo, how you doing, mate? So if a point is equidistant from the relevant 3 nearest altitudes, then all 3 altitudes are multiplied by 0.33 and added together for your new point. I mean, the outcome would be the same. I don't think that's actually what would happen with what I'm doing, but they're added up and divided by 3. Was I doing that right? But yeah, same outcome as what you were saying. Yeah, ideally, max distance to edge, alpha birds. Okay, and then we're doing the altitude modifier. Okay. Yeah, so this is what happens when I factor in all. You see how there's the the chunks don't line up anymore. I think that one's just very close to lining up, right? So yeah, this is factoring in all. Something else is wrong. But now the edges are not lining up. Now if I use the lerp value, let's use the lerp value, and then I think I would just return So I'm just lerping between neighbor chunk altitude and chunk altitude with that alpha value for every single chunk. Yeah, that's what happens there. Okay. So I think I do need to divide that then. Oh yeah, because I'm just adding them all up, so I need to divide them. But even it's not going to match up even then. Like here bedtime, I'd be curious to see 8 neighbors plus only run for 1 chunk. I mean, how would we verify that that's correct, right? Because like, I'm using all the neighbors now, and you can see I have quite a smooth chunk. This is using all the neighbors and lerping the values. It's quite smooth. Yeah, there's some lines, I guess, a little bit, but they don't line up. Like that's the problem with using all the neighbors. They don't line up. So if you have a fix for that, I am all ears. But my fix for that was trying my new method, which was using this distance plus filtering for only 3. Closest 3. I mean, closest x, really. Where x is less than 3 works on some level. What do you mean if you only run it for 1 chunk? There would be, if I only run it for 1 chunk, there would be no other chunks for it to match up with. What would they, if I only have 1 chunk shown? There would be nothing for it to be offset from. I mean, well, if the neighbors aren't updated, it's always going to be offset then. Yeah, the lerp, I don't know if the lerp is, because I don't know how to factor in the chunk lerp itself. Do I just do 0? I might just do 0 to, do I have a lerp value for the, amount of chunk altitude? Let's do like amount. I'm gonna do amount of chunk altitude lerped. And I guess I would want it should be at the least 0.5. How are you generating the height data? Is it Perlin noise? It is. It is indeed Perlin noise. I use Perlin noise for with some additional parameters for like frequency and octaves, and it's mainly persistence and lacunarity are the parameters that affect the noise. But then I do a bunch of noise with Voronoi to do like the world map and the biomes and stuff like that. No, it shouldn't be 0.5. It should be half of chunk altitude. Or no, it should just be 0, right? Because this should always be... Yeah, it should be 0. Let's also add that. Is this anywhere correct? Oh, I saw that. I got so excited for a second. I was like, oh my god. Nope. Nope. Same as before. See, now it's all messed up. Got a belly button. Divided by... Fuck it, we'll add one more for no reason. Stupid question, but isn't Perlin noise itself seamless, so interpolation wouldn't be necessary? Yeah, so this is actually a separate... What I'm working on now is kind of like a separate set of noise. I'll show you here in a second. So the Perlin noise, yes, all... so, yeah, the noise within a chunk all lines up. And these two actually look like they do line up as well. But the noise that I'm trying to get, so what we're looking at here is also a procedurally generated world map. And how I put that together is I have a material that looks like this, and I sample a random offset from it. And I get something like that. And so I have all these black and white values, right? And this is a Voronoi noise. And so the black is the sea, and then everything else is land. And so I put another layer of noise on top of that, which is Voronoi cells. Not necessarily noise, but I just generate a bunch of Voronoi cells. I have a bunch of parameters for those, and I iterate through each cell, and I give it a random color, and then that connects essentially a bunch of those cells, and then I iterate through this map pixel by pixel. Each pixel on this map is actually a terrain chunk. So my mouse is hovering over mouse coordinate 0, 0, which if you look closely is at the top of the map. It's quite small, and I have the value for how dark this cell is, or how much white, or how much black. it's how much white is in the pixel, right? And so these black ones are C, and it has zero altitude is what I call it. I'm calling it altitude. And so that's 0 is sea level, and so chunk coordinate 0, 0, which is where my player spawns at, has an altitude of 0.48. The one to the left of that has 0.5, 0.51, 0.46. So that relates to the altitudes that I want to blend the noise between. So the noise is already, you know, nice and connected. I'm also doing some additional things like the border of the zones are raised as a mountain here. But what I'm trying to do is make the values, the chunks here towards sea level at like 0.17, be lower than the chunks over here in the very bright zones, which are all the way up at 1 altitude, which is the highest of the altitudes. So I'm trying to layer some more noise on top of the noise and blend that noise together using what in my mind I've been thinking of as a weighted sum based on each vertex's location, right? So I have to do this calculation for each vertex. And so every point you see here is a vertex in the chunks. There's 58,000 vertices in a chunk. The chunks are 240 by 240. And so for each one of those, I have to calculate its offset based on how far away it is from its center. The center of a chunk should have the altitude that I showed you here. So for 0, 0, it should be 0.48 at the very center of the chunk. And I'm actually statically setting that to make sure I know where it's at. So it's actually off a little bit. It should be raised up and lurping away from where that tip is, where that nipple is. And it should blend weighted based on its distance away from not only that center, but the centers of the other chunks as well. That's what I'm trying to figure out. And I've spent like 4 or 5 days on it. And I thought it would be a lot easier. I knew it was going to be difficult. And what I realized actually, and why I'm still doing this, is I would have moved on to something else and came back to it later. But I realized that like once I unlock this, I actually have unlocked the method that I'll use for other things. Because I right now my entire world has one noise, one parameterized noise. So I was saying like persistence, lacunarity, frequency, octaves. It has one set of that, and it uses that across the entire world, and it looks very samey. There are some things that I've done to make it look not so samey, one of which is this altitude. The other one is applying the world map and applying oceans and border boundaries and stuff like that. But I would like each biome to have its own terrain parameters. And in order for me to do that, I will need to know how to blend noise. And it's going to be the same exact way that I do this. The value, it's just not going to be that value anymore. It's going to be a different value. So once I figure out how to do this weighted sum, this weighted average, or whatever it is, I have unlocked the ability to blend between different noises and have my biomes look very, very different. Also, the middle of every chunk be exactly as height as the chunk altitude, and everything surrounding it should interpolate towards the altitude of the neighboring chunks. Exactly. Exactly. Which, like, is easy to think about for, like, this point. Right? So, you just get this distance, right? What happened? Oh, we got a raid. Clarity with 3 viewers. Hello. Welcome. Hey, Deos. How you doing? Love from down under. Oh, from Australia? Fellow MS Paint enjoyer. Yeah, we've been in it quite a bit today. The smartest fellows do. Yeah. How you doing, Clarity? What were you guys doing before this? How did the stream go? Right now, I'm working on Denic Dev actually kind of put it quite eloquently. The middle of every chunk is exactly as high as the chunk's altitude, and then every vertex in the chunk, there's 58,000, needs to be interpolated between that chunk's altitude and then a weighted value for all the neighbor chunks' altitude. So that's what I'm doing now. Hold on, hey, how you doing, mate? Fixing some kinks in my procedural rooms. Oh, so you're doing some procedural stuff as well. That's fun. Yeah, so let me, show, I'm probably gonna get off soon. Probably. My headset is dying, and it is getting late, and I'm getting absolutely nowhere. Gotta go, but I'll be back soon. No worries, no worries. I gotta plug myself in here. Yeah. I feel like there's not very many people, I feel like there's not actually that many Unreal Engine streamers. Like, it seems like a very small, you know, community. PCG Pain for the win. Yeah, well, I had to roll my own procedural terrain system because PCG can't really do terrain. So that's what I'm trying to work. I do have PCG as well, the actual Unreal Engine framework. I'm using that as well. I've turned it off for now, just to iterate on this a little bit quicker. But every vertex also has a natural height, which differs a little of the chunk's altitude. But that's all the deterministic Perlin noise. So that doesn't need to be factored in, right? Because what we should just be doing is if we just add, it should be the same, right? It's 4 a.m. I'm gonna go. Yeah, go get some sleep, mate. Because like if we're doing the same calculation for every vertex, like it the vertex's height shouldn't really come into question. And you can see here, like it's actually it still has the same noise. Just kind of shifted upwards a little bit by a little bit, so it maybe will exaggerate some noise in some places. Have you killed all noise for debugging purposes? I haven't actually done that with this. I've done that with many other things. So that's the height curve. So we would need to take that out. And here's, like I was saying, like amplitude, frequency. There's persistence in here somewhere. I have no idea what this is going to look like. It should be easy to get connected pyramids. I mean, yeah. I mean, if there's no noise on it, the pyramids are going to look fine, I feel. Is kind of what I'm postulating. So I did recently change what I was doing here. Yeah, I was switching, so let's switch back to using the altitude mod here. And then, I think I was just doing final value, if I'm not mistaken. Is this what I had before, where it was, like, mostly working? So that's still quite off. Lord Z, thank you for the follow, mate. Welcome. Doing that. How do I get this back to what the hell I had? Oh, I was adding the lerp value into it as well. So we want to put that back. Oh, Jesus. But I still don't have the one that connected on the edge. What the hell was I doing? What was I doing that got me connected on the edges here? Okay, so here's where we are. Here's connected connected borders. I suppose I could take out the border mountains as well, but that's not too important. And so, I guess what's happening is like these sections are not taking in, because like the chunk altitude center, I do have that set properly. And so the only things that actually have the proper altitude on them are the verts that don't take into account the corner ones, maybe? Or something like that. It's very pretty value. So yeah, the procedural terrain system. And I said I was going to get off here soon, so I think what I'm going to do... What I'm going to do before I do that is put that back, and then let's take away the altitude that I'm doing. And then let's crank back up the max distance, and we can actually probably go quite high with that. So we'll run that. I'm too invested in this, dude. Buckle up, I've been invested for 5 days. And then, how did I forgot how I turned the PCG off. I mean, I don't know, it doesn't look, to me it doesn't look that different than what I was already looking at. I don't know, I guess I'm more used to looking at the noise, so maybe it doesn't, I can read through the noise, man. Hello, please? Unreal Engine, please? Hello? Okay, stop that. Biome core. What have I done? What did I do to turn you off? Oh, I did generate on demand. So generate runtime. Okay, so let's play. Let's play. Okay, I don't remember it taking this long to actually run. It's been a long time since I've actually booted the game up regularly. What's happening here? Sir. There we go, jeez. Okay, and now my PCG stuff is actually going to spawn here. There we go. See, look at that. Now it's nice and pretty. Now it's pretty. It's a little laggy. PCG is still running. Okay, now PCG's done. Okay. So this is what we're trying to get altituded. Can I send leaks here? I assume you can. But yeah, there's the, let me pull up the map here. So I'll zoom in a little bit to what we can probably... Oh, and the reason it took so long is because I way increased the render distance. Okay, so what I'm looking at here, the red zone here is, you can actually see it. It's right here, and I believe it's biome 103, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, okay, so there's the... that's this biome right here, this red one. And then you can see there's a bit of an ocean right here. This ocean area is where all these black chunks are. So this is the world that we're trying to get to working with altitude. And then like right here, this section where you can actually hit through is that little white dot there. Yeah, so I do actually have, I had that working. But I was also, the patterns were getting drawn as well. So it's like, yeah, that's half of what I'm trying to do, I guess. And I can only get one half to work at a time. And then this would be the blue territory, this zone right here, blue. And then you can see the zone entrance, that little white right there is going through. And then there's actually one right here. It's kind of hard to see because the noise is getting in the way, but that white chunk there is another entrance into that zone. And so I do have a couple different PCG graphs running But they don't look too different yet. I haven't gone through all my assets and stuff. But yeah, this will generate endlessly. Like each pixel on there is a chunk. And that's how big a chunk is. It's quite large. It's quite large. I didn't see what you. I don't think I was showing anything really. Just the map and the game. Nothing super interesting. Yeah, this is the world. I think it looks quite nice. This foresty zone I think looks quite nice. And again, the PCG framework and stuff has some really nice Perlin noise in it as well. Yeah, the link you sent was only half what I was trying to do. So I'll show it again. Yeah, so yeah, I did have different chunks that were offset from each other, but they also have noise on them. And I was trying to, you know, offset them to their different altitudes, but then also blend the altitudes like you show here, and I had that working to where each chunk's edge lined up, but it was drawing patterns on the chunk and raising with really far raised edges. And so I can get the chunks to line up, or I can get it to not have drawn patterns. But I cannot get them both to happen at the same time. But the noise is the global seamless noise. Yeah, so the noise isn't a problem, really. It's just applying the altitude is the problem. Doing a weighted average sum of the altitudes based on each vertice's distance away from a particular chunk. I suppose I can probably toggle that back on quite quickly here. Turn that off just to get it to start up a little bit faster. Go back to the map generator and turn that back on. So yeah, this is what happens. So I have the chunks, actually. There's a chunk. I do have it lined up with the other chunks. Kind of hard to see with the BCG in the way. But they are lined up. But you can see they have the nasty patterns on them. Well, I have not figured out how to both get them lined up, the chunks, and also have the pattern be a smooth blend. If I just do like a -1 on this, I think it makes it a bit better. It's still not what I'm looking for. Something is wrong in my equation somewhere, somehow, and I've been trying for about 5 days to get it to work correctly. And here's my that's not the equation. Here's my equation. That's it. I need to restart the engine here. I love looking at these like random pictures when they're landscapes, because I look at this, I'm like, oh, what if I could procedurally make something that looks like this? That was my computer, guys. Why is this taking so long to boot up? Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you for finally starting. That was very nice of you, Unreal Engine. Okay, so now these final values look a bit more like the values they're around the values they're supposed to be at, which is around the 0.48s and whatnot. Am I dividing by 0 somewhere on accident? Well, now we wait. Yeah, I guess there's a 0 somewhere? Well, I was about to get off anyways, so let's find someone to raid. Let's find someone to raid. Oh, there we go. Hello. Okay, interesting. So only some values were zeros. So if I factored in all of them and did that, what happens? Yeah, I mean now it's just offset. Now the chunks are offset. Look at it. It's disgusting. Let's see, who's coding right now? Retro FPS Game Dev in Godot. That sounds fun. Sure, we're just gonna go with the first one that we see. Okay, we are going to raid Jitspo. So I will see you all over there. I'll be getting off. Thank you all for hanging out with me and bearing with me as I try to solve this problem. We'll probably end up trying to solve it a little bit off stream. I don't know if I want to keep streaming this because it's kind of frustrating. It's kind of frustrating. But yeah, thank you all for hanging out, and I'll see you guys later.
I'm gonna get rid of the concept of these. My drong. Thank you so much for the raid. How's your stream? What are you up to?